Hey everyone. Okay, so today we're going to talk about gate 4. And we're going to work through, actually, for this one, we're going to work through the I Ching all the way through quantum human design and the evolution of how we understand this gate. As many of you know, because I talk about it all the time, I'm a one line. I'm a 1-3 profile. And so for me, that foundational piece is really important, right? Like there's normal learning, people want to know things, and then there's one lines that are like, and what else could like, what is the depth of what I need to know? I don't know enough until I know everything, right? There's a little bit of that. So for me, when I study these gates, I love the modern interpretations of them because that's how we can really embody them. It's really the more modern interpretations, Ra Uru Hu, Richard Rudd, and Karen Curry Parker, they give us a new way of really a modern way for the modern human, because so much has changed since 5,000 years ago, when the I Ching was really um, the book of changes, right? It was the book that everybody was looking to, or that was how we did personal growth, how we did personal development. 5,000 years ago is different than it is today. So but my one line likes to know where we were then, so that we can really understand the embodiment now. So when we look at gate 4, we're in the I Ching, it's called youthful folly. And what this the essence of the gate really is about is about the idea that there's this like, stupidness to innocence. That was the wrong terminology, but y'all know what I mean. Like there's a sense of like, um the not knowing has a presence to it, right? Like when that childlike wonder, that's a better way to say that's a better way to say it, is that childlike wonder, right? Like this place where we can hold what we know to be true, and that we could be totally wrong at the same time, right? There's this like both and of this gate that's like, can I have all the say when I open up to, so in the I Ching, they talk a lot about the sage in this, um and the way that the sage shows up when we're really ready to learn something. And we have to go into the sage mindset with like no expectation, no conditioning, no preconceived notions about what's happening. It's only from that no reason place can the sage really bring us wisdom, can we really learn. And so it's like it's a gate of really being very open-minded, truly, like beyond the conditioning. There is even beyond the conditioning that there's good and bad, right? Like fully free from any preconditioned notion. Can we be open-minded? And from there, the wisdom of the sage rises. Or it's really even, and we'll see this as we talk about more like the gene keys, it's like there's a wisdom that's given to us, right? Like it rises from the field. We are more in touch. We're going to talk about that too. Like when we get in that heart space, when we get beyond conditioning, what we have access to is much bigger than the human mind. We have this access to the energy field. And so we have to get into this place, of like neutral, of nothingness, right? Like neutral being absolute, no judgment, no reasons, right? Like beyond all of that. And in our ability, so then there's also this connection with that and the I Ching to like perseverance. Like, can I hold what I know, and that I might not know anything, in order to grow and learn and to face these bigger challenges in my life? So then as we move, so that's kind of the root, right? Like we've got this root in the I Ching, and then we move into the, I'm going to move straight to the gene key first. I'll come back to the human design. But because I think the gene key always gives us this really great texture, right? This like, okay, so now what with that? And so um, in Richard Rudd's work, so that's the gene keys, when he looked at this gate, it has a shadow side of intolerance, and it has the gift is understanding, and then the city state is forgiveness. And so the gate 4 is critical to humans evolving. And we'll see it, when Richard talks about it, he talks about how this is one of those gates that's really important in the evolution of humanity. um because it really does bring us into this place where we are able to stay open-minded, and we are like, to be, as we evolve as humans, we have to evolve more open-minded, we have to evolve more curious, we have to evolve out of our logical brain and into our ability to lead from the heart. And we see a lot of these heart gates, we're in kind of a hearty season. And so this particular gene key, though, is associated with the neocortex, which is the newest part of our brains. It's our ability to have cognitive function. It's our ability to reason and to work things out, to reflect and think about things, right? So this is the part of the brain that is affected by this gene key. And really when we look at it at its lowest vibration, right? So when we look at the shadow of this gene key, which means we're looking at the shadow of the whole gate, we're really looking at our intolerance, right? So, and even if, so like, let's just say, like, let's say you think you're a very tolerant person, then Richard Rudd uses the analogy of like, but do you love your neighbor? Like, are you completely tolerant of your neighbor? Are you completely tolerant of everyone? Because even if we believe we're fairly tolerant, we often are still pretty intolerant in a lot of ways. We're inconvenienced by people. We have our own programming. We have our own beliefs. We have our own conditioning, right? And so even if we think we're pretty tolerant in a lot of ways, or progressive and tolerant in a lot of ways, we still have to look at like, yes, that may be true, and also we still have a lot of intolerance, because humanity as a whole has a lot of intolerance. So it's what this is a what they would call a collective conscious karmic debt. So like the whole collective of humanity is working through this gate of intolerance. Like, what am I tolerant of? What am I intolerant of? Right. And really, when we look at relationships, so again, it's not on accident that this gate is in this season. We're in this huge season. It's a fiery season. It's Venus season in astrology. It's about relationship. It's about, it's about like love, the big love, my heart love. Ooh, I'm struggling with my words this morning, y'all. But like, so we have this gate that's activated, and this is going to be the gate that's activated also for the new moon this week. So it's got a little extra juice on it, right? So it's like, and it can that new, we might see a little bit of relationship stress, right? Because this is the gate that we're going to be working with this week, and it's really about, at our core, it's about core wounding, right? Like, and the word I want to use here is called reasoning. Like, what are my reasons? Because really, at the shadow side, this is a gate of blame. It's a place where we can blame things. And I don't always mean, in this case, I don't mean necessarily blaming as in the victim mode. It's everybody else's fault. But our neocortex is always seeking a reason. Why did that happen? What can I blame this thing on? What can I say? This is the cause. It's this part of us that seeks the cause. It needs to know why, right? So it's like, and in its shadow state, it can, have that edge with guilt and blame and shame, but it's more heart-centered expression. It's curiosity. Like, I'm curious why. And even if I think I know why, can I even let go of all of that? So this gate is going to help us to evolve from this place of intolerance, which is like, I don't know why, I want to know why, this reasoning, and blaming, right? That's creating that polarization of like, and we see that really amplified. We see it amplified, obviously, in government. It's your fault, it's my fault, it's their fault. Well, in government, they would never say it's my fault. It's always somebody else's fault. Like, but we see that intolerance of someone else's ideas, someone else's way of doing things, how that polarizes us, right? So what has to happen then for us to evolve is we get into that gift of understanding. And so this is the way of understanding. That's this gate. It's a really important gate in our ability to come together, right? Like, there's that place in the middle where you have your thoughts, I have my thoughts, and you don't have to be wrong for me to be right. And I don't have to be right? Like, there's that, beyond even that, can I hold just like, I'm curious, um, I'm curious about how I can understand you better, right? Like, because relationships require curiosity, because you're going to kick each other's core wounds. We see that in families all the time. We see, certainly it's something that my husband and I have worked through in our own relationship, is like, is that place where we're kicking each other's wounds. And actually in our coaching program, we went through a couples coaching program with John Wineland, which was fantastic. And one of the things that we really worked through in that is this place where, when we are in argument, right, when we are in that place of like, then we're supposed to take the gift of our core wound, what it really needed, and we give it to our partner in the way that they can receive it. And so, so a quick side note, I'm just tell you a story because it's funny, and you might have heard me tell it before, but so on the day that we're learning this lesson, we're on a break from it was an online coaching program, it was over COVID, we're on a break. And so we kind of have an idea of like, okay, so I'm supposed to be like, when I'm really upset, I'm supposed to give you the gift of my pain. If we worked through, like for me, when my core wound, it needed awareness. It needed people to see and hear me, right? This bigger awareness. And I needed to receive that by somebody verbally really communicating like, oh, I see what you need, like, or like doing the thing that felt like mind reading a little bit, but it was like, really seeing me. And my husband, he needed to be nurtured. And so he liked to be like held, or like somebody to like stroke his back or hold his hand. And that's what he really needed. And these are your littles, right? Like your core wounds. That's what they needed at the time, what they weren't getting, because the key to this gate is self-love. Like we have to do it for ourselves, and then we can do it in relationship, right? So that's understanding that I've always been seeking getting that thing I needed, this little part of me that didn't get what I needed at the time when I was little. And I've been seeking my whole life to get that outside of me. And so we have to learn, like I have to give it to myself first, self-love first. And then from there, I can be in relationship, right? So that's kind of what you're doing. And so this particular day we get off. And so he's supposed to be, the rules are he's supposed to be holding the container so that when it's time to come back, he's going to, it's time to come back, everything. And we've practiced, right? But we're also supposed to eat and do all the things. And so the time's ticking away, and he's doing a little bit of work, and I'm, trying to do like, so one of the things I've had to learn in this relationship is how much I just take on automatically, even though nobody asked me, and then I'm mad about it. Right. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to let him hold the container, and he's going to be in charge of it's time to go back. And we're going to practice, and he's texting away and doing the things. And I'm starting to get anxious about it because that's how I roll. And I decided to clean the bathroom because I'm like, well, we're not practicing, and time's going and doing all the things that I typically do. So I go into the bathroom, and we have like, we're getting on like, it's almost time. And he comes in and he's like, I need to make this quick phone call. Right. And so now I'm mad, right? Because he's clearly forgotten what he's supposed to be doing, and he's not doing his part. And I've been trying to like do my part and let go. Right. So all my little intolerant parts. And this is a big one for me because I've had to work through kind of some of my righteousness. All my intolerant parts are like, what's happening here? Right. So I turn to him and I say, so right now I'm mad. And what I'm supposed to do is I'm supposed to gently like rub your back and tell you that, this is frustrating for me because all the things. But I'm supposed to be giving the gift of it back to him. And all I can think is like, you want me to rub your back and not slap this guy, right? Like that's the kind of like, it's so hard. It's so hard to give them what they need when our little part is not getting what it needs, right? So, because we're righteous, right? We're right. When we're in argument, we're intolerant. I'm right, you're wrong, right? And that's how I felt in this moment. And so I'm like scraping the front of his chest, and I'm like, so this thing is happening, and I'm really mad about it. And then I just started dying laughing. I was like, oh my God, this is so hard. And so he sees me really struggling, right? And he is like, so wait, what do you need when these things? He was like, you need me to like be aware of what's going on. He's like, He's like, right now I can't be away. Like, because by that point he's triggered. He's like, I totally would have a hard time bringing awareness to you, like in this moment. So we just like kind of laughed about how hard it is for us to really do what this gate is asking us, right? It's really asking us to put our own pain, like to self-soothe our own pain so that we can be less intolerant of each other, so that we can have all this understanding of each other. When we do that, I wrote down this quote: understanding ceases to seek knowledge, right? So we'll come back to that in a minute, but because that's a quote that's really important. But let me finish this story because that's how I roll. So what we really want is we want to move into that realm of understand. I understand what you need. I understand how I can give it to you. And I am at peace with myself first, right? So that's the necessary part of understanding that has to happen in order for us to like really, this is a love gate, right? Like I was saying, like for us to really be in that full loving space and full relationship, we have to align with that inner light, like that I'm taking care of me, and then we build relationship from there. And so one of the things that comes to mind when I was studying this gate is the concept of heart-brain cohesion. And if you don't know what that is, you can research it through HeartMath Institute. It's been around for a long time and doing incredible research about how powerful the neurology of the heart is, the magnetism of the heart, the energy field of the heart. And what they know from research is that when the heart is really activated, when we're really in line with what I would call creator energy from archetypes, like really aligned with source energy, then the heart begins to create an energy field that brings the mind, brings everything, the spinal cord, the subconscious mind, the unconscious mind, and that neocortex into alignment with the heart, right? So that the heart now becomes the guide. And this is the future of humanity, by the way. Like this gate is talking about the evolution of humanity. And this is what they mean. They mean that we lead with our heart space, right? And that our mind serves the heart. The mind is now able to process what the heart wants. But it stays curious, it stays open. And last week's gate was really about that. Like, can I stay in the realm of like not letting my mind take something and make it this thing? It's like, can I stay in this world of possibility? And so the heart-brain cohesion really, like if we can move through the world with this open-heartedness aligned with these higher vibration of emotions, love and gratitude and understanding and kindness and compassion, then the brain entrains to that, right? And as we do that, as the brain entrains, as we know in human design, the mind begins to serve the emotions to the heart. The heart then creates more and more experiences aligned with those emotions. And so this gate really, there's this love component to this gate, which is really about like stopping that external seeking, which then leads to blaming. Inevitably, somebody can't give you that because no one will be able to fill it until you give it to yourself, right? We've heard that, but like there's this embodiment of like, I have to love myself first. And it isn't just, I love my physical body first, although for a lot of us, there's a lot of work to be done there, but it's like, I have to love all of my little parts. I have to love the parts of me that aren't so great. I have to love the part of me that's righteous and judgmental and opinionated. I have all those parts pretty activated in my chart. And so I have to love all those parts and the job they serve. This is where parts work really is so powerful when we start deconditioning our human design charts, because we've got all these parts doing all these things. A lot of them are there in roles of protection, and a lot of them are just ready to be integrated. And we have to do that ourselves. No one can do that for us. And so as we do that, though, we start to get to this place where we get to move into the city state in the Gene Key, which is forgiveness. And so forgiveness, I don't mean that individual, like I forgive you, although that is a symptom of understanding, right? Like when we can really understand something, then it almost naturally moves toward a state of forgiveness, or it begins its journey. It begins its journey towards forgiveness. when we can really have an awareness of why something is happening. We're not always ready to forgive fully, but that awareness, that understanding is the first door open to forgiveness. I often talk with my clients about, forgiveness work, but not from the perspective of we're just going straight to forgiveness. Who do I need to forgive? Like most of the time, our parts aren't ready for that because they're still protecting us, because we still have traumas. We have ways that we've been hurt. And so we have to do all the self-love healing. And only from that place, when we've healed it for ourselves, are we then capable of even opening the door to forgiving someone else. But that is the city state of this gate. And this gate helps us to evolve into that place of what forgiveness looks like. So we're looking at that universal forgiveness level, not necessarily that individual. And really what we're talking about then is that as humanity evolves, we evolve to a place where guilt and shame and blame go away. So I want you to think about the repercussions of what that would mean if we had no guilt, if we had no shame, and we had no blame, especially, right? Like if no one could ever be at fault, there was never any good or bad. There was like literally, and Richard Rudd even uses like, a man murders a woman, right? Like to the point that you could like think about that without any good or bad, without any guilt or blame, without needing to know the reasons, without needing to like, when the mind, when we beyond the mind needing to have a reason. And I know that's kind of like, that's a tricky, like, oh no, like right. There's a really triggering place for a lot of us. Cause like, that's wrong. Murder's wrong. Like these things are wrong, but it's the idea that we could move beyond wrong and right, that we can evolve beyond good and bad. And actually, it's the catch-22, because as we could do that, the less we would be less likely to hurt each other. Actually, the result is world peace, right? It's like we think that we tend, our mind wants to go the other way around, right? Like we have to solve world peace by being right. Like it has to be this way, but we actually end up in world peace because we let go of blaming. And so it's a really it's the other thing I want to say about it is that forgiveness is a state that it's a spiritual state, and it's actually one of what in Richard Rudd's work he talks about the 7 sacred seals, and it is one of the seals. This is one of the gates of those seals. Like it's a way, it is one of the more sacred rituals. Forgiveness, it rises from the field, from it comes from that universal love source, God, whatever word you want to use. Forgiveness is kind of given to us. It comes through us from that space. It's not, we talk about forgiveness really as like a verb, like it's a thing I'm doing, but it's actually a state. It's a state of grace. It's a state of being. It's more of it's a way. It's not necessarily a verb, I guess, or even it could even be like, if I want you to think of like forgiveness as a noun, even what would it look like if we played with it and we were like, forgiveness is a thing that's a gift to us that we can hold, and then it expands our heart and makes space, right? Instead of a verb of something I have to do or is done for me, or, like what happens when we play around with that, we take it out of that verb state. And that's really like, if we look at spiritual teaching, so if we look at the different spiritual teachings, and I'm certainly not well versed, but I do know that this is one of the essences of Christ consciousness, right? So Jesus Jesus brought forgiveness, brought a gift of forgiveness, that the idea that we can be open-hearted and compassionate, and from there, and with no blame and with no reasoning, right? Like this is really one of his, Jesus's gates. But when we say Christ consciousness, we mean beyond just Jesus, right? Christ conscious was more than just Jesus, but Jesus' teachings were this open-heartedness where forgiveness comes as a gift. It comes through. And actually what it opens is the Buddhic state, is what Richard talks about, is like how those two states together, there's that they work together, that they're pieces of a puzzle, and we start to put it all together, which is how I feel about most religions. It's all pieces of a puzzle. We put it all together, we start to really evolve, right? But again, that's the kind of idea of like, we don't other each other, right? So that's like, if I can understand you have your religion and why you have it, right? Like that leans back into my reasoning, right? Like that's totally, this gate is for me to actually understand why you think about things differently. I have to have a reason. Well, it's because you believe these things. And so through that reasoning, I have like, I can have this place of not forgiveness, but like understanding, right? So it's like, it's even beyond that. So it's kind of thinking about, can I think beyond why all the reasons? So you're, okay, so let's move it into like modern interpretations, right? So like in human design, it's the answer. It's the answer is the answer is the answer. It's like it's a head center. It's the head center wants to answer. It means, answers can be right or wrong. They don't have, you don't really know, especially if they came from the head. Only the answers that come from the heart or the body answers are the ones that are really the answer. There's a pressure in human design to come up with an answer, to come up with reason. So we look back at how that relates to the shadow side of the gene key, right? Like this need to like reason it out, to think about it, to understand it, and to make reasons for it, right? Which are going to activate centers in which we might have different emotions like guilt and shame and blame. And then in quantum human design, which is Karen Curry Parker's work, we look at it as the gate of possibility. And really here she talks about thoughts and reasons as seeds. Like, so you have a thought and it becomes a seed for you to be like, oh, I'm curious. I have the seed, this thought that happened. What do I need to plant that seed and do something with it? Is that my seed? Does that seed belong to someone else? And if it is my seed, did I plant it for long enough and let it really gestate before I'm ready to turn it into something, before I'm really ready? Like, can we take our thought and plant it? And this is really a connection between the crown and the root. Can we take what comes through, the inspirations and the thoughts, and then we plant them deep in what I would call, again, that creator energy, where we get all the way back down to the bottom of the wheel, the water, where we let things sit and gestate. And then only from that state can we decide what seeds are meant to grow and bloom and blossom and do something in our lives. But we have to bring it down. We have to plant it in our source energy first and let it be there long enough for it to gestate and see whether or not that seed is ready to plant, and not just like have a reason, not just have an answer, right? Like it's like to not just let the mind run. It's like we have to center the mind all the way down in the body. And so that's the progression, right? That's let's just checking back through my notes. So that's the progression through the original I Ching, all the way through how Karen is interpreting it. And we can see that progression, right? Like how we get from this idea of the sage comes when we are open-minded, all the way through the idea of possibility. The string that goes through there is this concept that we're needing to move out of our mind being the decision maker. And that's really the essence of human design, is coming out of the mind and into the body, let the mind sit in the back seat of the vehicle, of the car, right? Like, and so letting our heart drive, letting understanding and letting go of our intolerances of each other. It's a really big gate activated by Venus. So we have this really intense energy of this week. So I'm putting all of that here so that you can really contemplate and be with it, sit with it. What does it mean for you? Where are you finding that you might be more intolerant than you think you are? For me, it's pretty like the dog whines and I'm like, stop whining, like pretty intolerant, even though I would call myself a fairly tolerant person, right? So it's like just really observing with no judgment, right? And really contemplating, what would the world look like if people didn't judge each other, period? If there was just understanding, if there was only forgiveness, if there was only forgiveness. And some, I can't remember what tradition it was, but I heard this in church one time. They were, she was telling a story of like when in this tribe, when the young kids would get in trouble, they would do something wrong. The tribe would bring them in and sit them in the middle, and they would sit around them, and they would only tell them good things about themselves. Like they would only have forgiveness for this child. And it's this incredible experience of self-love, right? Releasing that guilt. There's this there's a lot of guilt activated in this gate. And so reminding him why he's lovable, right? Reminding ourselves why. And that's the point of this gate is we go to our inner council, our inner tribe, and we say, I am lovable. Why am I lovable? Right? Like reminding myself why I'm important and why I'm lovable. And from that place, I can lead with an open heart and I can love others who might do something to me, right? So like we've got that, the trespasses against us in Christianity. There's that, the Lord's Prayer, where we talk about this, like forgiving the trespasses against us. And that's the essence of this gate. It's not just forgiveness, though. Giving forgiveness sometimes puts you in a hierarchy. Like I forgive you means like you did something. By forgiving, you are automatically naming that someone else has done something wrong. Forgiveness actually transcends wrong and right completely, right? You can't give forgiveness. It's a gift that's given to us, right? Like, but not from someone else. It comes straight from source, because to forgive someone else is already saying, well, I acknowledge that in my righteousness, I can forgive you for your wrongness, right? Like, and so forgiveness transcends that thought pattern completely. Okay, I've rambled on, and I think you have enough to be with this week. So this is gate 4, early on in our gates, working through it. So let me know what you're thinking about that, and I'll see you really soon.